So the decorator trying to change the socket, started tripping the ICD, called an electrician, he come out, resolved it, but now the lights don't work. Well, it's been a while since I've come across one of them, an inline fuse to fuse down from the sockets to go to the lights. Oh, what a state this is in. What a mess. It's been a while since I've seen one of them. Fair play to the Spark. I could have easily fitted a fuse spur somewhere below in the cabinet, maybe. Well, let's try and get these lights working or come up with a solution. Right, so I can't film too much because the client's a bit of a watcher and it's a bit of a long winding story as to what's gone on here. I'm going to get the 3 amp fuse has ruptured in that back of that socket, so I'm going to find a fresh one. Fuses. It's been a while since I've seen one of them inline fuses in the wild, and it's the same on the other side of the lounge as well. And the previous Sparky hasn't returned any calls, says there's a lot of work involved, and then just has not answered any of the client's calls, which I probably know the reason why. It's probably a bit more effort and a bit more work involved, and it was just initially, the initial call out for him was the socket wasn't working because the decorator tried to change the socket. So I'm going to prove that the dimmer and everything is working, put a 3 amp fuse in just for now, but then discuss with the client what to do. I'm not so keen on keeping inline fuses like that. So the fuse is ruptured in here, which is the inline fuse just on the line, feeds the switch, and there was a dimmer on there, which then does these. I believe it's probably the same arrangement over there. Probably why the Sparky didn't want to get involved. Perhaps fit a dual box, single socket in the, this is the client supplied BG screwless faceplate on the right hand side and a fuse spur with a 3 amp fuse on the left hand side. I think that's my solution. Yeah. Bit across them.
So what I'd like you to do then,
yeah,
is fix the problem in there the way you suggested.
Yeah. Right. So how I've left it. So I've disconnected everything out of the well, be there a second. Disconnected everything. Put it back to where it was. I've come up with a solution of fitting a dual box, single spur, single socket. And looking at the consumer unit, I can see that the previous Sparky, when he came in on the initial call out, ran in a new cable from the consumer unit round to that socket, right, and disconnected that leg that was in the back of, that was existing in the back of that socket. So, and that's on a 32 amp fuse, so I've suggested to move it and put it on that 16 amp radial that was next to it, rather than leaving it on the 32. And also they'd like an EICR, so I booked an EICR and do all that remedial work. I checked the RCD tested out fine. I did a quick R102 from the consumer unit down to that socket where the dimmer was. I quickly checked the ring circuit and that was open circuit on all the conductors, hence why we got into the topic of performing an EICR and checking the rest of the place. The previous Sparky said that he tested all the circuits and some of them were a bit dodgy, but there was no certification, no paperwork provided at all. His initial call out was simply the decorator tried to change the socket and then the RCD kept tripping and he come out. And so he potentially may have disconnected that ring or split the ring somehow to get that working. So my call out was to simply the lights are not working for that job. And as you saw when I got there, took the front off, looked a bit odd, took the socket off. There's an inline fuse on the sockets. Someone had either it ruptured or they'd on purpose disconnected it. I'd probably go, I think the previous Sparky probably disconnected it, didn't want to connect it back up. Hence why he did put the CPC into the common of the dimmer, so if anyone did connect it up, it would just go bang. So hats off. Although the bit of rubbish communication with the client, he hasn't got back to him. He's just cleared off completely, no communication at all. We just briefly on one phone call, because the client was away when he was initially called. On the phone call, he just said, "Oh, I've tested all the tested all the circuits, and they're a bit low, but the sockets are working now." Obviously, didn't tell the client about the lights, about disconnecting the lights. Didn't tell him about the break in the ring. I don't really know how much testing he really did. There was no certification or anything provided, so we'll never know. But I basically confirmed the previous Sparky's suspicions. It looks like a bit of a can of worms. There are a few issues with the installation, but be open, be honest. Tell the client, unless he didn't want the work. I mean, the client wasn't there at the time, so it wasn't like the client was, you know, a nightmare or anything. Be open and honest. Tell him I've told this client when I'm next available. You know, in another 8 weeks' time, they're happy to book it in. So yeah, I'm using 2.5mm singles. Why? Most of you domestic house bashers, what are you doing 2.5 for? What are you doing 2.5 for? Volt drop. A lot of these commercial units will have 2.5mm for lighting and 4mm for power, because they're long runs in lighting trunking and in mains trunking throughout the building. So yeah, 2.5mm singles. I'm going to add on an extra light. Put one here somewhere with my, where are they? Lighting trunking adapters. These are fantastic. So they just slot in, as you can see there. But yeah, that's why I'm using 2.5mm singles. Slide this along, rearrange the centres, and stick an extra end on the end there. But yeah, another quick little drop. Just got to shuffle this emergency light along to make it fit. Just take it out. Some people, go back to my earlier comment of house bashers. This is lighting trunking filled with singles. Someone's had to add in an emergency light and they've just done twin. And one of them is just with green and yellow tape on it. Look at that. There. I'm not surprised. I'm just not surprised anymore. Quite commonly, I just say, quite commonly I'll see people not installing these correctly, where they will shove both lips up into the trunking. You see, it's supposed to be like this, where you've got one on the outer lip of the trunking and one on the inner side, and this initial lock nut clamps them together, and then you've got a solid bush to put your new lock nut on to secure your fixing. But a lot of times I see both of them up inside the trunking, and so you're spinning them around. You've got to get them down fully. This is the Cephas version. Again, similar arrangement. Clamp it on. But yeah, I think this is Unitrunk, this one. Ah! Hard to film one-handed. There we are. Lovely. Nice, just got to put that emergency light back up as well. Right, I've made my day rate for today, so I'm just going to early. Just for those 2 jobs, that little call out in the morning and these couple of extra lights. So I'm going to go home, do some paperwork, do some invoices. Jobs are good. Plus it's lovely and sunny. Ice cream weather. Work smarter, not harder. I spoke too soon. I spoke too soon. I thought I was going to have an easy day, head home and do paperwork. That was never going to be the case. Just had a phone call from a client. No one likes to do paperwork anyway. Just had a phone call from an old client, and a fuse is tripping, or the AFDD is tripping on their shower circuit. So we're going to see what that problem is. I couldn't film much because the client was sound, but her dad's a bit of a watcher. But it was a faulty fuse box AFDD. Quickly swapped it out, back up and running. I did perform a couple of tests just to prove it wasn't a fault that caused the AFDD to, become faulty. So it was on the shower circuit, so I disconnected the line, or the supply to the isolator, did a quick IR test across all conductors. It was all clear. Popped it back in again, retested, tested the RCD side of it, and jobs are good.